Hey everyone, on this episode I speak to Ryan Hall. Ryan is a good friend of mine. I've known Ryan for a few years now, pre-pandemic. I look forward to reading his newsletter every week when it comes out. It's super informative and I learn a ton from it, and I'm super jealous that I don't come up with so many of the things that he puts into his newsletter. He has grown agencies, sold his business to Accenture. He's just done amazing things in his life and his career. Great entrepreneur, super humble guy, and just a really credible, smart sales and business development expert. So super excited to have him on the show. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Nathan, thanks so much for having me, mate. I'm really, really grateful to be on the show and just always look forward to our conversations. So no doubt we're going to have another good one today.
So, Ryan, for those that don't know you and don't know your background and history, tell our audience a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today.
Where to begin? Where to begin, Nathan? So for context, I've been playing the agency consulting game for 23 years-ish, give or take. I started off doing a sandwich course at university. At the time, I was actually working with an Italian family that I'd been working with for 7 years. I came up to the sandwich slot in my university degree. Honestly, I wasn't loving university in any shape or form, if I'm being really honest. I'm not against education, but I just didn't really enjoy it that much. And chanced upon an opportunity to work with a great agency called FPP Design, headquartered in Newcastle, which is obviously where I'm from. And I thought I'll get in, I'll get out, 6 months or whatever it is, and then I'll get back to the restaurant and do what I enjoy doing. But the whole world of agency just unraveled in front of my eyes, and it completely took my breath away. So 20 plus years later, here I am still doing the whole agency thing. But that was a real kind of opportunity for me to start my career. I really loved my time with FPP. I extended it as long as I possibly could, but obviously at some point kind of had to go back to university. Went back to university. I was at university back for my final year, a matter of days, and my best friend at the time had just started his agency, at the time called Revelation Design. Later became a very well-known agency called Think, TH_NK. And Tarek, who was the founder, said, "Oh, mate, you've been doing that account management and sales thing, haven't you?" And I was like, "Yeah. Can you help me a couple of days a week?" I'm like, "Yeah, that would be great, mate. I'd love to." You know, a couple of weeks later, we're pulling like 100-hour plus weeks. You know, working with your best mate, wild west of like very, very early digital. We're talking, I don't know, what was it, like 2003 or something, 2002 maybe at this point. And it was wild. It was brilliant. I mean, it was just like, it was such a great time. Suffice to say, I didn't really attend my final year at university. I did go back and sit the exams. I think I was given a pity degree because I was the last person on the stage on graduation day.
We got to give him something. He turned up.
Yeah, well, they probably just didn't want to fail. They didn't want the stats to like be skewed by my poor effort. But I mean, I learned so much more in those 12 months than anything I could have learned at university. And I stayed with Think for like 7 years, I think it was. Tarek's right-hand guy, leading business development, obviously very heavily involved in account development, those sorts of things. And, you know, learning what I've learned, but just really kind of in a very practical way. You know, there was no one to learn from necessarily in the early days. So it was really just like trying to work against what felt right and, you know, trying to just understand people because ultimately I'm a people person. So, you know, worked with Tarek and, you know, very proud of where we got that business to in that kind of time frame. Ended up moving to London as part of that role to help them kind of move the head office from Newcastle to London because that was kind of a big strategic initiative, and rekindled a very close relationship with another one of our friends, a guy called Peter Lukanov, and we set up Nice Agency, which is the first business I'd ever started, and certainly the first agency I'd started. And that was a wild ride because, you know, a lot of people, when you start an agency for sure, you've normally got a founding client, right? You normally go, I'm leaving a big shop. I'm going to take this client with me because who cares, right? It's a big faceless business and they're going to be my founding client. But clearly you can't do that to your best mate.
No.
So, September 1st, 2009, this lovely little cool co-working space just next to King's Cross. Opened my laptop, didn't even have CRM, it was a spreadsheet, but it was blank. And so it began. Let's build a pipeline, like literally on day one. I mean, obviously we had proposition and blah, blah, all that kind of stuff like lined up. But it was literally day one, square one, and let's go. And we built that business over 5 years to 50 people, 5 million turnover. Along the way, launched Channel 4 on mobile, worked with some brilliant banks, First Direct, MBNA here in the UK, like brilliant clients to work with. A lot of work with Trainline.com, Bank of America, Sky. I mean, some brilliant, if ever you wanted to work with anyone, they were on our client list. And it was an organic business. I mean, we built it through ultimately great relationships and just being good at sales. But my views on sales, and I'm sure we'll come into this later, but I don't think anyone's selling anything to anyone in this space, by the way. It's all about buyability, but I guess we'll probably come into that later. But we did great work. We're really good at what we did, and people like working with us. I guess you also can't have a business called Nice without being nice. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a mantle to live up to, right?
Right.
And that's the way we operated. Yeah.
Great origin story. I love that history. So take me back to this founding of Nice then. So you open up your laptop. Was it a Mac PC?
That was what was it? It was a Mac. It was a Mac, which was a difficult transition for me because I think I was running the Microsoft partnership, and it was all that was the kind of like I'm a PC era with those really cool
Got
ads.
you. Got you.
But Pete was adamant that we were not going to be a Microsoft shop, and I mean, fair play to Pete. I've never looked back now. So it was a Mac. It was a MacBook Pro.
Right
Yeah.
decision. Right
Yeah,
decision.
right
So you,
decision.
so you open up your Mac and you've got your spreadsheet there and it's blank. So what's the first thing that you do? How do you start filling that pipeline?
I mean, the first thing you do when you need revenue, it's existing network. I mean, you normally like if you're talking to anyone, they go, "Oh my God, my pipeline's a bit weak. I need cash quick." You look at your existing clients. But September 1st, 2009, we didn't have any existing network. But again, having to be very cautious about who we went to talk to because a lot of my network by that point was based around Think. So again, trying to be very, very cautious around who we actually went to talk to. So it was a very, very small list of people that was could have been ICP, ideal customer profile, but unrelated to Think. It was a very short list. So then you go, well, look, I just need to go and meet people. So the next thing you do, especially when you haven't been in London a year, it was still um, an interesting process of like just getting out and doing events, right? That was still a novelty. So where can I find events? So I literally just found as many networking events as I possibly could, and I just went and met anyone and everyone, and drank beer and drank coffee, and would talk to everyone and everyone that I possibly could. But of course, you've got to be a little bit more strategic than that as well. So again, like thinking about the sectors that we wanted to target, and we were bringing quite a lot of expertise in the financial services space. So we started talking to investment banks, wealth management banks, businesses, to try and build a pipeline of opportunity off the back of that. And it was pure sales 101, just grit, determination, and just kind of basically just try to stick at it and talk to as many people as possible. And back then, probably certainly no less than I do now, but you still still had an expectation that people would be waddling around with briefs. But again, that's just not how sales works. But because we were really good at relationships and we talked a good talk, but because we could deliver against it, we built great rapport. We built pipeline. We won work. As I'm sure you can imagine, that wasn't big work. They weren't big projects. A lot of the stuff we were doing was, in my language now, I'd call it a gateway product. Small widgets. Not big products in any shape or form. And started to build trust around those investment bank and wealth management banking clients or prospects at the time. And then started to do a little bit of project work that advanced in a bit more detail, and also started to do team augmentation as well, which was a great, I guess in hindsight, was actually a gateway product, albeit a very good revenue stream for us as well, because it was quite low risk for the buyer. So we ended up then like building product teams within the banks over a period of time, whilst we then built up case studies and credentials and capability to demonstrate that, you know, Mr. or Mrs. Big Business could trust us with a big project. And that eventually came. But 101 blank spreadsheet, that's where we started.
Okay, so talk me through, how did you win the first client? Who was the first client? What did you, so assuming that it was in the financial services space, because you can't just, or presumably you did, you just called up banks and investment companies and said, hey, can I speak to the decision maker? How did you win your first client? Talk me through that.
I think the first project we did, and you know, this is a long time ago, and I've got, you know, some grey hair coming through, so
I can see them.
yeah, the past is muddled already. You know, 43. Um, it wasn't actually a banking client. So I think the first project, the proper project that we won, was for a company called Snovio, and it was actually through a partnership. So again, like looking at network, right?
Hmm.
Very difficult to go direct to brand when your network's tied to your best friend's previous business. But what we did have was potential channel partners, and they were other agencies. So we picked up this, and bear in mind we were using some really trendy technology at the time, Adobe Flex and Adobe Air. I mean, that was like prime, like trendy tech. Doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. But we were experts in it because of Pete, my business partner. So we won our first proper project, which was like, I don't know, it was like $5,000. It was tiny. Was a weather widget built in Adobe Flex, for this company called Snovio, and I've got no idea even if they exist anymore. But it was like snow. It was like snow skiing, kind of Alps style experience, and it was a little Flex widget that sat on various pages, and it had kind of real time dynamic weather reports, massive library of different weather icons, temperature gauges, forecasts, snow reports, all sorts of things. But it's this beautiful little compact widget. I'm pretty sure that was the first
Hmm.
proper thing that we won. You know, whilst we were trying to build the rapport and trust with the banking clients.
So the reason why I'm laboring this point and I'm asking this question is because a lot of our audience are first time founders and they're selling some kind of technology product or service or consulting product, and they're probably in a similar position to you guys were back in the 2003 2004, that sort of time. Blank spreadsheet. Okay, we know who we want to target, we know who our ideal customer profile is, but we've got no contacts, we've got no idea how to get in touch with them. What's the first thing that we need to do? So just hearing you talk through that approach is really interesting. So essentially relying on who do you know first, and this is something that a consultant that I worked with some time ago always said to me: who do you know who? Who do you know who can introduce you to, or who do you know who can help you open the door to? So when you start with who do you know who, it really means that you're not really starting with a blank sheet of paper in many ways. Aside from starting from who do you know who, that relationship, what else did you do that works? What else would you recommend? Let's say, 2024, tech founders starting up a business today, blank sheet of paper. What would you recommend that they do from day one?
So, solving sales, right? Sales, and especially top of funnel, which is what we're talking about, right? Because again, like I said, there's a big misconception in sales that pick up the phone less today, right? But you get in touch with someone, you manage to cut through, and of course they've got a brief. Well, the reality is that just doesn't happen. I mean, it's such a small chance of happening. Any new founder with a blank spreadsheet or blank CRM looking at how they can start to build out their sales funnel today is scale. And the two channels that can help you do that are LinkedIn and email. But again, if I was sat here today with an empty CRM on day one of setting up my business, honestly, the first channel I'd be going for would be LinkedIn. And you can scale that channel quite well. Build your network in the right direction and try and just get out to meet as many people as possible in a really disarming way. So as I said, we were disarming in a variety of different ways. Like, just don't go out there and sell anything, right? Just try and build a rapport and a relationship with people who are in your market. They might not be a buyer, but they might be able to, as you said, they might be able to do a referral. They might know someone who needs something like that. Or, right time, right place. If you built the trust over time, then something will come up with that person for sure. Just get out there. There's a there's a bit of a challenge. People put themselves out there. It's a scary thing to do that. Put yourself out there. Go and talk to people that you don't know. Like, that's just not for everyone, right? And I'm not saying that you have to be an extrovert to be able to do this, but the reality is, like, LinkedIn is actually quite a safe space. Again, like, if you put content out there, when you see people start posting content for the first time, those first few posts or articles, like, they're very nervous because they're worried about criticism. Like, you're putting yourself on the virtual page, but the digital page, and you assume that people are just going to give you a teardown. But LinkedIn, I find, is generally a really safe space. So, number one, just get out there and meet some people and see if you can actually go and meet them. Because again, the first challenge to break through is just putting yourself out there and going, hey, look, looks like you've got a really interesting business. I'd love to learn from you. Can you spare me some time? But the second misconception, or kind of challenge to break down, is just go meet these people face to face. Like, go for as many coffees as you can bear in a given week. And just, my nan always used to say 2 ears, 1 mouth, right? Just listen to what people are talking about. And then the third thing would be, make sure you follow up. And again, you're not going to just try and pull the rug on someone and go, great, we had a cup of coffee, you got a brief for me. And that's like not the follow-up that you should be doing. Add value. But make sure that you turn up and make sure that you follow up and make sure that you nurture those relationships. Because it's ultimately relationships it's going to be the thing that turns into revenue for you at some point. And many people will run at different speeds in your pipeline, turning from a relationship into revenue. Some people may never turn to revenue, and that's totally okay. Because you're still, like, just being a good person, a good human being on the planet. Like, you give value, they give value, something may come from it in the future.
What do you recommend that people do on LinkedIn as first-time founders or early-stage founders to get themselves out there? As you said, they may find it quite scary. Look, it is quite scary, even to me, who I've been doing it for some time now. And every time I put out a post and I'm about to press send, I'm like, double check everything. Is everything spelt correctly? Does it look okay? Like, I still feel that fear. So I can imagine, early stage or first time founders, that's intensified. And especially if you're introverted, right? And you don't like the spotlight to be on you, which I don't like the spotlight to be on me, which is why I'm podcasting from my studio, my home studio. But what do you recommend that those first time founders do on LinkedIn? Because there are lots of things that you could do. You can create written content like you do. You can create video content. You can create posts with images. Is it more about education and just nurturing people with great thought leadership over time? Or do you advocate a particular style of post or style of content? And then my secondary question related to that is, if you are going to reach out to someone and ask them for a coffee, how do you do that? Because a lot of B2B decision makers, a lot of senior decision makers, they get tons of stuff in their inbox all the time. And, if they get another request from someone asking them for a coffee, it's just like, why would I do that if there's no value attached to that? So, two-part question. I hate asking two-part questions, but let's take the first one.
So, first things first, I always think everyone should go out there and start a LinkedIn post that says, I'm pleased to announce ... No, I'm joking, obviously.
Because we don't see those all the time.
Or what I learned from what I learned in my insert specialism,
right,
from my recent hiking trip to whatever. I mean, we don't want to do that either, right?
Okay.
What should you do first? On
delete that.
All of those things that you said, right? You need to be doing all of them. But the thing I'd say first is just start, right? And you can build up the expectations in your own head. Because you might look at my profile, Nathan, and go, how's Ryan producing on a Monday a post, an article on a Tuesday, a post on a Wednesday, a carousel on a Thursday, and a video on a Friday? I mean, that's not where we started. we layered up to that, right? So we started to just break that down and go, right, what's achievable? And it might not be an article every week, it might be an article every 2 weeks, but 2 articles or 2 posts per month is better than no post per month. So stop trying to set these expectations of yourself that you're going to fail on immediately. However, the long answer is all of those things that you said, videos and articles and posts and comments and engagement and direct messages and new connection requests and accepts, you got to be doing all of it at scale, because it's a noisy place and you need to cut through. And unfortunately, the algorithm is some wild beast, which, I mean, I don't know how it works. I've got no idea. And it's changing all the time, but you've literally just got to be feeding it with enough engagement to show that you are interested in the platform as a very basic level of understanding. And eventually it starts to give it back to you, right? Your point about, is it education, is it entertainment, is it whatever it may be? I mean, you need to be true to your personal brand and the mission and the values of your business for sure. But ultimately, again, if there's a short answer to that question, give value. For sure. No one, well, I say no one. I've got, as you know, I've got a real kind of thing about a lot of these personal branding posts that people put out there. And, they're on their little soapbox and they're overly promoting themselves. Or it's a picture of you and your cat because you met your cat on the landing this morning and your cat said something to you and you had an epiphany about the way you're going to run your business. And I mean, it's
And
like,
that means I'm
stop.
launching this new product now.
Please stop doing
Yeah.
this stuff. Like, if anyone's doing it, please stop. It's so disingenuous. And no one cares. It gets likes, right? It gets the engagement, especially and I've put the odd picture up of my dog and my cat and my kids, right? But when I write about this stuff, it always comes back down to actually bringing something useful to the audience. And that's the bit that's going to make it useful for you if you can be useful for other people. Otherwise, I mean, it's not Facebook. I don't really care about your cat or your dog, right? Or your kids, being really honest, right? I'm there because I want to engage and see the humanity in people, but I want something that's useful. I want to learn. I'm desperate to learn every single day. So, if you can just start, to recap that, just start doing something and, you'll trip and you'll stumble and you'll miss a slot and that's okay, but get back on the wagon. And then ultimately, if you just make it useful, then the rest will come.
Great advice there. How would you book meetings and appointments from LinkedIn? I mean, you said one of the things that you recommend that people do is actually reach out to people directly and invite them to coffee, which I think is a great thing to do. If you can actually get FaceTime in the real world with your prospect face to face, there's nothing that beats that. But what I found is that in order to do that, you have to lead with value. You have to come with some kind of value. Like, if people are giving up their time to physically meet you in the real world, there has to be something that they're getting out of that relationship. How have you found the best ways to reach out to someone on LinkedIn that you don't know and book a meeting with them, book an appointment, get a coffee meeting or a lunch meeting with them? What are the best ways that you found to do that?
Value comes in different ways and forms, okay? So, if you're just a mobile agency or a digital agency and you're trying to talk to the chief product officer of a well-known brand, right? I mean, what can you teach that person? Because, they are probably pretty much top of their game, right? You'd assume. But value comes in different ways. And, so what we find is trying to get people's opinion on things actually is still a value exchange. Because, everyone loves to think of themselves as an expert in some shape or form. And, very much like this environment now,
Sure.
I love talking about sales and I love talking to you, obviously, and actually we're all humans and, oh, obviously, mate, the beautiful voice of yours, but I mean, that's a whole separate podcast on that, right? People just like talking about the things they're passionate about, and, certainly, I look at things through an agency consulting, brand lens, right? We all we all are mostly are passionate about what we do. Like most people are really quite hyper passionate about the thing that they do, whether you're a UX specialist or a product specialist or a technology specialist. Like you do what you do because you love it, and actually the chance to talk about those things with a potential peer, or just being simply asked about your opinions and going, look, I'd just love to hear your thoughts on X, Y, Z, A, B, C, actually is a value exchange enough potentially for that person on the other end of LinkedIn to go, yeah, go on, I'll give Nathan a chance. I can give him 20 minutes on a video call. Sure, go on then. I am interested in this topic, so let's go for it. That is honestly a significant enough value exchange. Again, like the expectations are often in the wrong place around what value means, because you can give the value back to that person later in different ways once you've got to know them a little bit more, and you haven't kind of assumed that they don't know anything, so you start sending them stuff which they could probably rewrite and do better than you might, perhaps. I don't know. But it's, find those ways to disarm people and just be human, frankly.
Well said. And you're right. When you disarm people, I think one of the best ways to disarm people is to be human, actually, and lead with value. And actually, if you show that you are putting them first, and that actually you're not just hawking a product or service, and that actually you want to solve a problem that they've got, or you want to genuinely listen to what they have to say, and you're deeply interested in their point of view and perspective, I think that is quite disarming. So you've got this philosophy, this approach, which is quite jarring to people on the face of it, called "Don't Sell." And I'm like, okay, well, you're a salesman and you sell, you help people with sales and business development, but your whole approach is don't sell. And on the face of that, that sounds quite counterintuitive. It sounds quite, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that, Ryan?
I literally mean don't sell, right? All right, let's put things into context, and going back to that little kind of point about being human, right? And we've all received them. Hi, we're a WordPress agency. We specialise in WordPress and Laravel. Do you need to buy a new website? No, mate, I don't need to buy a new website. Like, why are you asking me that question? You've got no understanding of my business. You've not added any value to me. Whereas, if you think about the other context of this, and I used to use because I'm that old, I used to use the example of, the double glazing salesperson knocking on your door going, hey guys, noticed your windows are looking a bit raggy. Do you need some double glazing? Now, you can sell to someone in that context, right? You could be sold to quite easily. I guess today's modern version of that is like possibly the solar panel person that's coming around to your house to make sure, hey, you haven't got any, what's your electricity bills like? You haven't got any solar panels on you. Right. It's like, God, you know what? I really need to do something about that. Yeah, go on, come in, mate. Come in for a cup of tea. I'll listen to you. Like that is selling, right? And I also think that, like, if you're at the car dealership, you can be coerced, sold to as well, right? There's a pressure component. However, when you are in a high ticket, highly consultative environment, so again, an agency trying to get to know and see whether there's a fit with a brand, right? There is absolutely no way that professional in the brand is going to be coerced into buying something, because it's just too complicated. Like, the sales process is too hard. Like, even if you happen to have something and loads of chance opportunities lined up perfectly for you, and you happen to go as discretional spend, it's not going to go and sign up from someone. It's like, it just doesn't work like that. So the idea of going in to try and sell something, coerce someone into buying a solution that is highly consultative, strategically connected to their business, you're never going to win, ever. Because again, as we said earlier, even if you did manage to catch the meeting with the right person, the right time, right place thing, like the chances of them going, oh yeah, just finished writing a brief about that just this morning. Like those odds are, you might as well buy a lottery ticket, right? It just doesn't happen. So the whole don't sell thing, just don't go in and sell. Like, treat them as a human being, listen to their challenges, get them talking, try and disarm them. So, because naturally people come in with their guard up into these conversations, even if they've accepted the meeting. disarm them and let them know that you're actually not there to hawk anything to them or sell hard. Actually, all you want to do is just hear what they're up to. What are your challenges? Yeah, well, we saw that with this client. It's a different sector, but it's a parallel problem. Well, they did this and they did that. Maybe you could think about that, but just don't sell it. If it's a fit, it'll come back to you, right? But again, like this don't sell thing only works if you're then following up. It takes time to follow up, and it takes time to build this trust and relationship and try and get you there. And obviously, if you do this at a big enough scale, then you will chance on the right time, right place thing. Honestly, like it can happen. But just appreciate that sales is a slow process, and in a high ticket, highly consultative environment, selling environment or buying environment, as we like to call it, it's going to take some time to build that trust, and the right opportunity present itself where you've put the effort in and they're willing to take a little bit of risk on a somewhat stranger to help them solve the problem.
And it's such a strange thing when you actually sit down with no agenda with a client and say, I just want to listen. I just want to listen to your problems. Tell me your challenges. Like when you do that, I feel it's so rare, first of all, that people get an opportunity to talk at length about their problems. It's so cathartic. It's such a, you mean you're going to just sit there and listen to me talk about the challenges that are going on in my life? Like, if you think about the instances that happens in your life, it doesn't really happen that often, apart from a podcast, maybe, where someone's sitting you down and asking for your opinions. It doesn't happen that often because people generally are waiting for you to stop speaking so that they can say something, right? People are waiting, people aren't generally listening to what you say. They're waiting for their time to speak. And I think when you give people a platform and just say, look, I just want to hear, I just want to listen to your problems and your challenges. Number one, that's hugely freeing. You've got no agenda, so you're not coming back with any particular solution. Oh, I know what you should do with that. You should buy this solution, right? I think it's hugely disarming. It builds a tremendous amount of trust and credibility. And conversely, it's probably the best way to sell because people actually realize, actually, this is probably someone that I can listen to, someone I can trust, someone like you almost need to earn the right to present an idea or solution. And the only way that you earn the right to present your idea is if you listen to somebody and they feel listened to.
I totally agree with that, but I actually don't think that you even necessarily need to get to the point where you present your idea. Because if you treat that potential prospect with the respect that they deserve, listen to them, add value, treat them like a human, turn up, be consistent, follow up, but again, like not trying to sell anything. You don't need to necessarily go, hey Nathan, by the way, I had this thing. I mean, you could do it, like we call it the gear switch, right? Again, because obviously there's a system, at some point you've got to sell it, right? So there's a systemized process to it. The gear switch is like at some point where you can go, can I get your opinion on this? Like, all of this stuff that you said, like, I think I could help you solve it. Totally fine. But the reality is actually, sometimes you just don't even need to do that. Because if you've done the first bit right, the relationship build, the human bit, sorry, building towards buyability, right, rather than selling something, they'll come to you.
They will.
That trust will be there. They'll have listened. They'll have understood it. There's a thin veil to all of this stuff. I mean, not everyone needs new Facebook friends, right? But at the same time, like, you're being really human with someone, it'll come back to you. And someone might say that's not sales, right? But the means to getting there, I do believe, is sales. But again, like selling, I don't agree with. Like I said, I think what we're trying to create is an environment for buyability, because a sophisticated business with a consultative requirement is looking to buy rather than to be sold to.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. And look, everybody gets it. When you reach out to someone on LinkedIn and offer them to buy them a coffee or lunch, they get that you're not in it for philanthropic reasons. You're ultimately trying to sell something. But I think it's the environment that you create. It's how you do it. And I think when people have those negative experiences about salespeople, it's because they've been treated like crap. When people say, "Oh, I hate salespeople," it's because they've had bad buying experiences, like the car salesman or the the example that you use with the solar panel
Solar panels.
the solar panel salesman, which I've never seen, by the way, but I'm sure they exist somewhere knocking on people's
I don't
doors.
know. Maybe I made it up in some
Yeah,
kind of weird fantasy world, but I
yeah,
can only
maybe not in
imagine that's
England.
not. It would spoil my analogy if they didn't exist, right?
It would, but I get what you mean. I think the reason why people have a negative perception of sales is because they've had bad experiences of salespeople. But people buy all the time, all the time, and they don't have negative experiences there. It's just because it feels so seamless. It just feels so natural. They don't even know that they're buying when they buy, and that's because the salesperson has that skill of making it feel like the environment that they've created is just so conducive to buying something, right? You don't feel like you're being sold to.
Because you're buying it, you're not being sold to. It's a massive mental shift.
Talk to me. We haven't got a huge amount of time left. I can talk to you about this all day, Ryan. Talk to me about. So I put out a post on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago, which is about the generational shift at the moment between, millennials and Gen Zs and their approach to sales and new business, and people of our age who aren't millennials and Gen Zs, people slightly older, right? And I guess we grew up at a time when, it was all about outbound. A lot, especially for me, right? I grew up at a time when I was given a phone and a book and a bunch of numbers, and I was just asked to just dial. And that is not the world that we're in anymore. I think there are some people that still survive with that sort of outbound proactive approach, which I still think has a lot of value. But we're in a very different world now. And a lot of the complaint from business owners today is that the millennial and Gen Z workforce are work shy. They don't like to pick up the phone. They're not proactive. They haven't got the right skills and attitude. They haven't got the right, attitude to be successful in sales because it takes a certain amount of resilience. Is that true? Is the new generation work shy? Are they just really crap at sales? Were we just really good in our day and today they're just rubbish? What's happening, and how do we get younger salespeople to perform in the way that we want them to perform?
I think it's harsh and lazy to tar everyone with the same brush, right? And I just want to clear up, I don't think we're boomers, by the way. I think, at worst case, we're Generation X, right?
I cast
Before we
no
get to the
aspersions.
generational thing.
I just said we were older. I didn't.
Yeah.
I
I
leave
guess
that
it's
to the
me that
viewer.
brought it down. Sorry, my bad. Because I'm a bit older than you, mate. I feel it. So I
Not
think
by
it's
much.
really harsh to tar everyone with the same brush just because of your age or whatever it may be. So I don't even know what generation. I've got a girl called Jada in the team, right? She's what, I don't know, maybe 24, something like that. So what will that put her? Is she Gen Z? Yeah, she must be Z rather than Alpha,
No,
right?
she's millennial. She's a millennial.
She's still a millennial? She's
Yeah.
bottom, young end of millennial.
Yeah.
Um, she's a weapon, right? I mean, what an amazing attitude. And you literally can't stop her. She just wants to absorb everything that's around her, and she's got a great work ethic and attention to detail, brilliant attitude, right? And look, I've seen other people of a similar age that just aren't any good, right? But the same can be said for anyone of any age, right? There's good people, there's people who aren't very good at what they do, right? So I think it's harsh to tar everyone with the same brush. What I would say is they've got quite a rough ride, COVID plus post-COVID, right? Because, we're a remote team, and, we talk all the time, it's you can't just do that little chair spin moment and go, hey, can I just have a quick chat to you about this? You've got to arrange something. So the opportunity to learn is dramatically reduced, unfortunately. You can't have that osmosis style stuff where, you've got 50 people in an office and you're overhearing stuff all the time, right? They're in their little pods at home, in their little home offices and all this kind of stuff. It's a lot of the time. It's really difficult. The thing I would say as well is, not every business, I believe, is culturally set up correctly for sales. And again, there's a lot of people who have the wrong attitude and expectations of sales. So you hire a salesperson, and immediately the culture is wrong. It's set up wrong. It's not supportive enough. The expectations are too high. The job spec's actually probably not right because the sales engine's not organized correctly to put this salesperson in a position of potential success in the future. They're asking too much of them. They're stretching them too far across the funnel. Trying to get them to do cold stuff and nurture stuff and maybe even close stuff. Like it's a very difficult environment, and sales is a corner of the market I think that needs to mature quite significantly if we're going to use the talent that we have coming up through younger generations. You've really got to work at it. I actually think there's a bit of a problem in the UK when it comes to sales. I think US is probably quite different. The US actually really does appreciate the sophistication and the art of sales, whereas the UK, I honestly don't think we're wired that way culturally. Obviously like all the memes about British culture and all this kind of stuff, but I just don't think. I think being a salesperson in the UK is actually quite difficult, and businesses don't treat them properly, train them properly, give them the space, the right setup, the right culture. It's like, where's the numbers? Where's the numbers? Where's the numbers? Where's there's probably not enough training wrapped around these people. I do think they've got a difficult job. I really do, which is a shame because then we're probably going to lose some great talent.
And in addition to that, you have this whole approach, which is all about like build it, don't buy it. Essentially, it's saying, look, build your own sales engine internally, which I really love. I'd love you to unpack that for our audience. I'd also love you to talk about that in the context of what you just said in the UK, especially that we undervalue the importance of sales and we don't give the salespeople the right structure, training, performance indicators. Talk to me about the value of and the importance of building your own sales team and your own sales function as opposed to outsourcing it, which I think a lot of founders do when they get to a certain size or when they get a certain amount of investment. They go, right, thank you very much. Sales is not for me. I'm going to hire someone else to go and do this. Why is that such a bad idea?
I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. Sales is not for everyone, right? But actually, the people who don't like doing sales they arguably have the best potential to be good salespeople because they're not trying to sell. But the challenge of outsourcing sales is no one outside of your business cares about your business. Not enough. So, you go to, an outsourced sales partner and they've got like a fractional SDR or whatever the setup is, meeting gen, lead gen solution, whatever it is. All you are is a slot in their diary. They don't know the intricacies of your business. They're not in your business. And even if your business isn't in an office and you're still remote, like there's still the opportunity for more osmosis of learning. And what works, what doesn't work, what insights, those little kind of beautiful little nuggets that as a salesperson gets good inside a business, they are hearing all of these things and learning and being able to apply those. Oh, well, actually, I overheard one of our client success people talking about how we solved this for another client. Maybe I can go and get that information for you. So if you're an outsource, nothing against these people. I'm sure they're not bad people, but I just don't like the way that it's all structured. Because, this fractional SDR turns up and it's like, just say you're the tech company in question that's outsourced sales, Nathan. It's Tuesday morning, cool, I'm on Nathan's business 9 till 12. I'm going to hammer the phones, I'm going to hammer LinkedIn, and that's it. In the afternoon, I'm on someone else's business. I'm obviously exaggerating, but yeah. That's the challenge. Like, if I was that fractional SDR, I've got no idea really what's happening in your business.
Sure.
Contextually, yes, okay, this briefing process, like I'll learn the proposition, and I just don't care enough about your business to really lean into it. And also, it's like, from a financial perspective, it's oddly quite expensive to buy that chunk of that fractional SDR's time versus building it with the technology and the people and the process and strategy. But it's like the risk factor. Like, a lot of businesses outsource sales because, well, it's better doing something than nothing. And I really don't know how to do it in-house. And where do I find a good salesperson? There's some very kind of key barriers to someone trying to bring it in-house, in theory. The reality is, it's actually not that hard to build your own sales engine, and the value is infinitely larger because, even if you look at an investment perspective versus a return perspective, hiring a full-time SDR, and maybe there's a couple of other bits and some technology, might look a little bit more expensive, but in the grand scheme of things, you're getting that person full-time rather than just fractionally as a start, as an immediate kind of marker, right? You get more value from it, and it gets better. It's something you can optimize. Whereas if it's sat outside of your business, you can't put your arms around it to optimize it. It's just a thing. It's a black box. It's behind the wizard's curtain. You've got no idea what's going on in there. But if it sits inside your business, as sales should be, it can be optimized, because sales is not a light switch moment. It's just go, I'm going to do sales today. No, that's not how it works. Sales is a dimmer switch, right? And you got to work your way up to bright. And you got to optimize it. You got to learn. You got to make mistakes, skin your knees, and launch campaigns and do things that don't work to work out what does work, and then look at the data. There's a massive data play when it comes to sales. So insourcing it is having it in your business and having control over it, ownership and leadership over it is way, way better an outcome for any business than outsourcing it to someone. Now, I mentioned two words, ownership and leadership, right? Because what you could do is you could buy all of those things, all the technology as a business leader, buy the things, buy the technology, put the process and strategy in place, hire the people, and go, awesome, I've solved sales. You're still outsourcing the problem. It just happens to be outsourced inside your business because you don't own it, and you're certainly, with that attitude, not leading it, and sales needs to be led, right? It's not a autonomous little vehicle that sits inside your business. It's a beautiful, organic, living organism that needs love and care and optimization and direction and to be led. And that's where you get the most results from it. So it's not some kind of weird box, right? It's a living organism that you've got to really look after and care for.
Sales is a dimmer switch. It's not a light bulb that you turn on and off. I'm going to steal that. Sorry, Ryan. And I'm going to use that everywhere. Yeah, I will. There was this guy. I got this from a guy. A podcast. No, this is brilliant. Sales is a dimmer switch. You're totally right. Sales is not something that you can just turn on and off. I'm going to do sales today, and you do sales. It's not. It's an always on, especially in a B2B, highly consultative, long sales cycles, multiple decision makers. You can't just turn that thing on or off. And companies get into really difficult problems when they do turn sales off, right? When they build up a pipeline, they get really busy, and then they stop prospecting and stop doing all the things that they did to get the pipeline. They service the clients, and then 6 months later, they're like, oh, crap, we've got no pipeline. So you have to, it's got to be an always on thing. The challenge and the pushback, I'm sure that you'll hear from some people, some founders, is, well, look, if it's something that I need to nurture, if I need to grow this function, I need to water it, it's a plant which it needs delicate tendering to. Number one, I'm super busy. I'm running a business and I've got 100 different hats that I'm wearing. And number two, I'm not a natural salesperson. So I have to really understand, I have to really understand the science and the physics of sales deeply to be able to direct and orchestrate other people and other salespeople. And I think a lot of founders are really uncomfortable with that, because I think a lot of people still treat sales as this mysterious black box.
Look, it's true. But again, going back to my point about expectations, you don't have to be... Look, most founders can close, right? So, arguably they're salespeople. Because if a founder can't close at the very minimum, then you haven't got a business, right?
What are you doing? Yeah.
Because, the founder should always be the best closer in the business, right? Now, why? It's not because they're a better salesperson than anyone else. Actually, far from it. Because, as you rightly say, technically, by the textbook, they're probably the worst salesperson. However, they are the best person for someone to buy from. Why? Passion and understanding, right? And, going back to that point where adding value, the founder or the business leaders, it doesn't have to be the founder. People who are in that kind of leadership position get it. Get the business down to its DNA. understand how it fits, how it adds value, and can talk about the subject matter of whatever the thing is till the cows come home. And actually, going back to the buyability bit, that's all the prospect wants. And also, they want someone to care about what you're about. And again, I'm probably talking certainly agency consulting here, but also like, if someone's buying a bit of interesting tech, they want someone to care about what they're about to do to the prospect. And again, that is like an aura that certainly founders, but certainly business leaders carry with them. And again, it comes back to trust, right? So, if you set the right expectations and you rewrite the playbook for these founders and let them truly understand really what it means to lead and own an engine, don't worry about being a good salesperson, mate. Like, just be you and be passionate and give a shit about what you're about to potentially do to a prospect's business, and the rest comes, right? And then obviously, like, different people can do different things, and that's where the engine comes in, right? Because founder can't do everything, but you can get scale from organizing your process, structure, people in a different way. But if you get the founders and leaders to own sales in that respect and be enthusiastic about deals, that's ownership, and that's leadership.
So Ryan, I think we're going to leave it there. There's so many other questions I want to ask you. There's so much more for us to get into. The thing that I'm going to take away from this is sales is a dimmer switch. It's not a on and off switch, which I'm going to steal. Unfortunately for you, you're going to see that everywhere on LinkedIn. There's so many great nuggets and great bits of learning and insight that I've taken away from this conversation. Tell our audience where they can go to find out more about you.
I'm on LinkedIn. Come and get me.
Ask him for a coffee. Ask him for a coffee. He loves that.
Ask me for a coffee. I'll buy you a coffee. Look, if anyone wants to connect, I'm on LinkedIn, Ryan Hall. Follow my newsletter. We stick a useful bit of content out every week. Love to hear from people if they've got challenges. I'm always happy to give answers to stuff. As Nathan knows, we've been talking for years and years and years. You could always, if you really wanted to, pick up a copy of the book.
Where do we go? I mean, I saw this on LinkedIn. I haven't seen too much promotion around it. I don't really know what's been.
It's on pre-order. And unfortunately, it's been on pre-order for a while because I know you want to wrap this, but the book thing, like this is, I'm not a writer, okay? So every article that I publish, I struggle with, right? Because I'm not a natural writer. The book was like something I started on my honeymoon 8 years ago. And it's morphed through 4 different incarnations to what we have now with Don't Sell. The problem is inside our business, our frameworks move on so quickly. I want to make sure that the book is as up to date as it possibly can be.
Got it.
However, we're in this kind of window where I can get it updated, and I think we're fairly level from a process framework methodology perspective, and we've put it in the book. So it will be. It's available. You can pre-order it now if you really want to.
Okay, great.
It'll be shipping very soon. And certainly by the time this goes out, it might already even be shipping. So check it out.
Pre-order where? Amazon?
On my website for now.
Your website?
And it will ultimately be on Amazon as well.
Amazing. Okay. We will stick links in the show description to Ryan's website and LinkedIn so he can buy you a coffee. And you can follow up with him directly. Ryan, thank you so much for being on the show.
I'll buy a coffee.
Ryan, thanks for doing this.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, mate. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
It's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for some great questions and just the opportunity to say my piece about sales, which you know how passionate I am about.